Please welcome Alfonso E. Morgan-Terrero, who receives a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Tisch School of the Arts and will now address his fellow graduates.
President Hamilton, trustees, class of 2019, we've made it to the end. Thanks to 4 years of hard work, patience, and a lot of late-night Red Bulls at the study lounges and boats. To graduate from NYU is a remarkable achievement. We should all be incredibly proud of ourselves. This week, I've been asking myself, how did I get here? It's a good thing to ask yourself, because the answer you arrive at might surprise you. I'll tell you a little bit about how I first got here. I arrived at NYU Tisch after having driven down from my family's small home in the Bronx in a minivan packed to the brim with bags of clothes. My Jamaican grandparents bickered with my Dominican mother about whether or not we'd be on time and about whose fault it was. All the while, my oldest brother tried to make the ride a little less stressful for me by blasting Hot 97 through the speakers in the car. It was a kind gesture, but it didn't really work. My success during my years at Cardinal Hayes High School, just a few blocks from where we're gathered here today, made me believe that initially I had what it took to go to NYU. This is where I could finally learn to use the cameras that I could never afford to use growing up. This is where I could learn from the greatest professors in the world about how to truly become a great filmmaker. But upon arriving, I quickly came to question whether or not I belonged. I spent my first year rooming in a suite with the sons of an Oscar award-winning filmmaker, a billionaire music producer, and a very successful surgeon. Most of the students at Tisch had already had exposure to cameras. Some of them had even been on professional film sets already. Could I really have something to offer here? I knew nothing about any of that. Was it some kind of mistake, perhaps, for me to have been accepted into an institution that at first felt so foreign to me? But then on one autumn afternoon, a professor of mine asked me a central question. Who are you? What can you uniquely contribute to the world? I thought long and hard about this, and I ultimately responded by reaching into the only truth that I knew. The truth found in the immigrant Caribbean communities that I grew up in. I showed my classmates and professors interior domestic spaces in my films that they had never stepped into. I compelled them to come face to face with people that they otherwise would never come to know or speak to. I compelled them to experience humanity, the humanity of my people. That was my unique contribution. So again, how did I get here? I think the answer is that I, like all of us gathered here today, have always been here. The admissions committee saw us for who we were, in some cases before we saw that clearly for ourselves. And we in turn make this university what it is. After all, NYU is the direct product of what each and every single one of us has to offer. Tomorrow morning, I'm flying back to the Dominican Republic, where I've spent the last month preparing to shoot my first feature film. It is now funny to think back to that freshman who was asking himself if he had what it took to be a filmmaker. Without NYU, I might not be sitting here thinking of myself as one, even though that is what I always was. And so it seems only fitting that I stand here in the Bronx, where my life began, now knowing that the key to self-knowledge rests inside of me, as it does inside of all of you. My hope is that all of us will carry that power of self-worth with us as we move on to all of our wonderful next endeavors. Congratulations, class of 2019.